Good morning.
Great. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Full house.
Good morning.
Hey, we're all here.
That's right.
Yes.
I know. But Jules has been on hiatus for a while. She's been having fun in the sun in California.
Oh,
No, she sounds like she's been working. Go ahead, Jules.
yes. I grind. I'm sorry, I let the team down, but hopefully now like things will settle. I don't know. It just got so busy all of a sudden, and when opportunity knocks, you just kind of have to jump on that train. So
That's right. That's right.
So it was my boyfriend's like, it's so weird that you're not on the call, because I always like usher him out of the room. I'm like, get out, like it's time, you know what time it is. So it's good to be back in my routine.
That's why you need a purple room. Then he'll probably stay out of your room.
I do, yeah. I need a woman cave. Just
Yeah, I'm working on my woman cave, right, Jules? You and I need to talk about that.
Yeah.
We need some Pinterest ideas how to decorate it, and
That's right. So tell us, let's just dive into that. What would you have in your woman cave? What are the top things? I mean, like you think about the man cave, and we have that, we want to have the bar and the nice.
Okay, Sam, you have to have the most beautiful vanity.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. And everybody knows I have a vanity. In fact, I'm sitting at my vanity right now because my desk is in storage, right? So you have to have that first. What do you think, Jules?
Good lighting, humidifier, oil diffuser. I'd make it like very therapeutic. So all day long, like
candles.
Yeah, candles, plants. Very comfy seating. What else would I have?
Lots of wine and a fireplace.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, one of the places I was shooting at, it was a mansion like close to Beverly Hills, and it was huge. I was like, this is goals. They had it was not really a basement. It was like a lower level, and the wine cellar. It was a walk-in wine cellar.
Oh wow!
Huge. It was like a whole room, and then I was like, this isn't even full of wine like it should be. But so I was like, okay, wine cellar has to go on the list.
That's because whoever owned it drank it all.
Probably.
I mean, that's the problem with the wine cellar. It usually disappears. But I would also add, would they not have a pool, Jules? I mean, a pool is really important. Hot tub.
Yeah.
That sounded like a very, very expensive, room so far.
Yeah, your man cave is not going to.
We're just talking about it. Yeah, we're just talking about a simple, bar and maybe a pool table. You guys are going crazy there.
I think
it's a Brunswick.
I would add a retractable massage table, right? So masseuse could come in and.
Yeah,
there you go.
100%.
I know. So I just got back from the HR Tech conference last week, and it was in Las Vegas, and of course in Vegas, I mean, you have to, if you're not, you basically have to walk long distances, right? Because everything's just massive there. And so I was like walking so much, I was getting these cramps. I was like, man, I need one of those massages. And of course at conferences, and I was a big rush, and I had to run out. And as I was running out, I passed one of those, those free massage that's part of the conference. I was like, damn, I didn't know that was there.
Sam, I would expect that's not necessarily your area of expertise. I definitely was in Las Vegas when you were in Las Vegas, except my focus was not on HR. I apologize to all my colleagues. My focus was on sitting in one of the largest sports book things that I've ever seen, a 3.5-story sports book arena for over 12 hours. And you know how much I love sports. With my fiance, yay!
Yay!
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sam. It's so funny because it's like you see a building, you say, okay, we're gonna walk to the stratosphere, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is like 5 miles of walking hell.
Yeah.
That convention center, because it was at the Vegas Convention Center, or was it the Sands?
The HR Tech conference?
Yeah.
Oh, it was actually in Mandalay Bay. So.
Okay. I was gonna say that convention center, it has like 2 halls, so it is like a mile difference, and
right.
Yeah, I kept
Good.
looking at the Mandalay Bay from across the way.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, nice to have you here. So it's good to see everybody join, Paul and everyone. So we're going to be, we're going to get started here at the top of the hour, just having a chat, catching up with Jules, since we haven't seen her for about 3 weeks here.
I'm sure it was very quiet. I'm sure it was very peaceful without me.
Yeah, you know how quiet and peaceful we are, right? We're just quiet and peaceful.
Yeah.
Very zen.
Yeah. So and so Annissa, you're in Southern California, right?
That's right. I'm in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're in Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
a little south.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's right where Jules is too. So.
Yeah, not too far. So I mean, I'm actually on the northeast side. I'm in Pasadena, so a little bit. So the thing about Los Angeles that's interesting is Jules and I could just be 10 miles away, but it could take us 2 hours to try to meet just with the traffic.
No kidding. I mean, I was there for work a couple, several months ago now. But I remember I just had to get across town from one business meeting to the other, and it was like 5 miles. And it took me several hours to traverse those 5 miles in a car. I mean, I could have walked there faster, so.
And I still think we're not back to where we were pre-pandemic, and we're close, but we're not there.
Yeah.
Not fun. You get so used to no traffic that when it starts up again, you're like, I just don't want to leave the house. And it's not.
Yeah.
So I need my woman cave, my humidifier, the massage table, the wine,
Your pool,
next
your
door.
vanity. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
Well, I think Colorado and California are starting to become a lot similar these days.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's my perspective. Colorado is starting to become just like that. And all the Californians are moving to Colorado too.
Yeah. I get that fresh mountain air. Right.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're happy to come. Just bring in the revenue.
Well, good. All right. So 2 more minutes and we'll get started here, everyone. Just as people are joining in and on our different platforms.
Yeah, Jules, Danielle on there missed you. He asked about you a lot.
Yes, whenever.
Thank you so much. It's nice to feel missed.
I know. I mean, we just need your pep and personality. So it was
that's
great.
why I brought a bit of pink. Bring a little bit of the bright colors today.
That's
because
right.
HR and talent management topics, although they're very exciting, you got to add a little jazz to the talent management HR space.
That's why we're here every week. We bring we make something that's not always the most exciting, and I think with the numbers that we get and the returning people, I think I hope we're doing something. I hope we're jazzing it up.
I think this people stuff, even though I got in HR at a very young age, I still think it's exciting. I mean, talent management HR stuff is exciting. People are
right now. It's because things were so very much the same for so long. Now it's gone through this huge change, and it's very still murky waters. People are figuring things out, but it's going through such a huge transition. And I think that's what's really exciting, is that's just everyone's been thrown, and everyone has to swim in the deep end. And I think at the end of it all, it's just going to be this beautiful new structure that is going to lead to a lot more happiness.
Yeah, there is a silver lining in all this, and I've always believed that since the very beginning. There's always a silver lining. We've learned how to use technology differently and how to build relationships differently and connect with not only loved ones, but also our businesses.
Right. Absolutely. We are now at the top of the hour, so I think that we need to get down to business and start doing the broadcast.
Yeah. All right. I'll get to work as I took a bit of a break. All right, everyone. Welcome. Good morning. We have a couple of you on already. We are very excited to have you here at the People Strategies Forum. And I know many of you on here are returning to us. You're here every week, and we love you for that. But if this is your first time here, a little bit about what we do at the People Strategies Forum is we get together every week, and it's really, you can think of it like a mastermind of leaders coming together. We discuss different topics, and at the end of the day, we just want to create workplaces where people thrive, employers reward, and customers love. So we always have a different speaker every week. My name is Jules. I am one of the hosts, and I sit on the panel. I introduce our speaker and our other panelists as well. But I am also on the sidelines looking for your questions in the chat. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and please also address it to all attendants and participants, because if you just do all attendees and we reply, we look a little crazy, like we're talking to ourselves. So do make sure that everyone does get to see that question, and we really invite questions. We love this to be really conversational, fun, and it's a Q&A, so questions are very welcome. Now I'm going to introduce you to the rest of our panel here today. We've got a full house, so good energy all around. I'll start with Shah. Shah is not only a HR expert, talent management expert with over 20 years of experience working in HR. Not only did she work in the corporate world, she eventually branched off and created her own company, Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, which we just heard is
from HR. Shah from HR.
So you're branching out to Texas now?
Yes.
So she's expanding.
Yeah, we're becoming international. Eventually become global. So Sumit, watch out. We're going to be coming your way.
Good.
And then we have Sumit here. Sumit is actually located in India, but he has over 16 years of HR and consulting experience. He has experience working with some of the largest companies in the world. And I think it's going to be a great discussion, because I know you've read Annissa's book. And so I know you were sharing some thoughts about that. So good to have Sumit here. And then lastly, we have Sam, who is the founder and CEO of Comp Team. He helps companies restructure their talent initiatives and their reward programs to create happier workplaces. And he is also the creator of this forum as well. So that's our panel. I'm going to now introduce you to our lovely guest speaker. We were chatting with her a little bit before, getting to know her, and we know you're going to love her. She, like many of you, started in the corporate world, worked in the corporate world for over 20 years in the HR department, and she oversaw the successful hiring of over 20,000 people in 150 countries each and every year. Very busy career before she ended up branching out and starting her own company, Log Lab, in 2015, which she helps executives modernize HR. And she also, I believe, consult with HR professionals as well, from what I read.
That's right.
I
tend to coach HR professionals.
Yes. Yes. Well, Annissa, so welcome. So it's
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
We're excited to hear more about your book too, The Comeback.
That's right. So Annissa, why don't we start just telling us a little bit about yourself? I mean, how did you start your journey in your career and get into HR and then become the professional that you are today? How'd that all happen out?
Sure. So as Jules mentioned, I have over 25 years of experience. I actually started my career in IT. Spent about 10 years working in both consulting environments and corporate environments, and then ended up working for a bank and was working in the IT department, and my boss got fired, and they decided I wasn't ready to take the lead role yet. So they asked me to just run it in the interim. I did that for a while. When they found the replacement, they thought, well, gosh, this person really can't take the lead until Annissa goes and does something different. So I moved out of IT and started working for the chief administrative officer, and through a variety of different roles, she asked me to go work in HR. And so this is right when the mortgage industry was turning, and so 2007. And what our problem was, is the bank, when the mortgage industry was growing very rapidly, the bank had grown very rapidly, and the HR processes hadn't kept up. So there was a lot of basic blocking and tackling that wasn't happening well, like we'd run payroll and not everybody would get a paycheck.
No.
Or we'd send the benefits file and people would drop off, and they'd go to the doctor and they wouldn't have coverage. So one of the things that was my job was to really restructure these processes, transform them, and then give them back to the leader. Well, while I was doing that, the bank failed. And suddenly we were in conservatorship with the FDIC. We're one of the only banks to do that. And then I was asked to be the chief people officer of a failed bank, which is not the most fun job. So I did that for a while. It was clear the bank was not going to get sold as a whole, or it felt that way at the time. And so I decided to leave. And I went to go work for the chief financial officer of a Fortune 500 professional services firm. And the goal was to follow him around, really understand how a leader makes decisions, to learn more about finance, to get a broader perspective of it was a development opportunity to really get a broader perspective. And so I did that. And one of the projects he had me work on was a strategic plan for the company. And so while I was doing that, we discovered that there was a huge gap between where the company wanted to go from a strategic perspective and our talent acquisition processes. And so he asked me, it had been a couple of years that I've been working with him, and he said, hey, will you go take over global talent acquisition? Mm-hmm. And so that's how I got the role, hiring 20,000 people in 150 countries annually. I also had the opportunity to work on a variety of internal talent initiatives. And what this company really helped me do was understand that HR should be aligned to driving business outcomes. So whether we were working on performance management or succession planning, all of that should be connected to driving a specific business outcome versus a check the box activity. Mm-hmm. So I was loving the work, and I just felt like this was such at the time, a very unique concept. And I felt like I could have a bigger impact if I went out on my own and started helping smaller companies do this. So in 2015, I launched Load Lab.
That's great. And I know, and it's so important. And that's the reason why I really wanted to go out myself and consult with a lot of growing and developing companies, because we're just in a period of time where those companies are flourishing, all the new ideas out there, and I felt like I could be much more of an impact by helping these companies grow and these ideas come to market. So I'm glad that you're out in this space. And like no other time ever, you are needed so much right now. And your book is so timely, the comeback, because I know a lot of companies out there right now are in a period of crisis. And we've gone through this crazy period of the pandemic. We're still working through it. And a lot of companies are faced with substantial change. There's been new entrants in the marketplace. Our customers' views have changed, and our employees' views have changed. And so where many HR professionals and chief people officers are in a period of distress on how to handle all this. So did you foresee this as you're writing the book, or is this, how did this start?
Yeah, so I wish I could say that I, foresaw the whole thing. But the reality is, I had been talking about this concept of modern HR, and I probably should just add a little bit more of the background. So it wasn't like I decided to launch this company and suddenly every small company wanted to hire me. There was a lot of concern about, you've come from a big company environment. Can you really help me think like a small company? So I had to think about my messaging and my approach and really rework that. And through that process, I would come up with different anecdotes and data points and share them. And when I would do that, people would, they'd get it, but they wouldn't really internalize it, right? And so during the pandemic, it just occurred to me, I could take all of these anecdotes and data points that I had and try to build them into an overall story that shows it, how a business can manage all of these things that are happening and have success at the end. And so that's really how it came to be. It was 5 years of just, stories and sales pitches and, data points and getting people to really understand what it was I was trying to do. And so just bringing that together into one overall story. Plus, we had time during the pandemic. I was tired of binge watching TV, and I thought it would be kind of fun to just, tell your own story versus watching someone else's.
Right, exactly. So tell me right now. I mean, this past 6 months or so, there's been, what's been termed as a great resignation and so forth. The people are rethinking their work and their work life. And so what are the stresses that HR professionals are seeing right now and they need to adapt to?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that we've all been in this, in various states of lockdown, or, just not able to connect with people and things the way that we've wanted to over the last 18 months. And I think when the Delta variant happened most recently, people kind of thought, well, we're past this, and now, here we are again. So I think a lot of people just in general are looking for something to change, something they can control in their life, right? Whether it's buying a new house or changing their job. So there's just a force out there that I think we need, like, they feel like they need to change something. And so I think there's a portion of this that you just have to account for, and to some degree accept and look at it as an opportunity to bring in new talent to your workforce. But I do think HR professionals have an amazing opportunity right now to get ahead of some of it and to maybe mitigate this by really thinking about what the future of work is going to look like at their company, right? And I think they can look at things like Glassdoor and engagement surveys, or however they're collecting information on employee sentiment, and really start to think, like, what do we need to do to build the right environment, and what are the things we need to amplify about our culture? What are the things we need to change about our culture? I shared with this group before we went live that there was a tweet yesterday about, every time one of my competitors says, announces a return to work plan, I'm able to hire 10 or 15 engineers, right? Because they're not listening to their employees. And so just like we listen to our customers and we come up with products and services that make sense, HR now has this opportunity to really listen to the employees and design something that can be really unique and works for the company across the board.
I think that's a great lesson. I mean, we've seen some of these companies. There's some of those companies out there that have really struggled, and others that have found opportunity in this time. As we know, that in Shara, your business is expanding across borders, and we've seen companies take advantage of situations that and understand the changes in the market, and they've reflected to that. Whether it's providing curbside service for restaurants, or there's a lot of ingenuity that's happened. People just haven't sat by and allow the situation to take control. They've taken action. So how are you advising your leaders to take action in some of these issues and be more strategic?
Yeah, I mean, both from a CEO side and from an HR side, it's not reacting to the situation that we're in, and also not thinking about when we get back to normal, right? Like the normal is gone, and so it's treating this as like a blue ocean type exercise where anything's possible, and we're also dealing, I mean, there's other forces at play, right? Like, we don't have enough talent for the roles that we have. There's a skill shortage. So we have to think much more broadly about what it is we're trying to do and how we're going to get there. And I think a lot of it is just taking everything off the table, thinking about what work could look like if there were no constraints.
Mm-hmm.
That could be even something as experimental as, rethinking the W-2 model. Does everybody need to be an employee? Like, if I'm hiring non-core functions to my business, do they really need to be full-time, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of opportunity to rethink how work gets done, and you don't have to go and change everything right away. You can experiment in little areas, learn from those experiments, and expect that in any innovation, right? Something's going to fail, and you're going to learn from that failure. But I really encourage them that now is the time for us to be thinking like that, because that's the way that we will develop that competitive advantage in the future.
So I have to interject here. So, here's the deal. I don't know. I know, Annissa, you don't really know me at all. But, I spent half a year last year on an ocean in Puerto Vallarta, running my business from there. So anyway, I think just sitting all those days sitting by an ocean, running my business, watching the waves go in and out, the tide go in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's interesting because I think it's completely transformed my mindset. And Sam's been working with me for several years now, so maybe he's kind of noticed it too. It's like the ebbs and flows, the ins and outs, everything that's going on. Yesterday, I sat down with my employees, my leaders, and we talked about change and diversity and agility and the ability to transform and metamorphose and everything and be innovative. We talked about it very differently. So, you know, us traditional HR people used to talk about change management programs, the change models that we used to do in the past. Well, today it's extremely deeper than that. It's about truly transforming. I have employees that are literally picking up and relocating to move down to Texas. I have other employees that say they really want more of an agile type of work environment where they can go to school and they can work more of a per diem or as needed basis. And they're being more open about the hours that they want so they can adjust to their new lifestyle changes. I have employees that say, you know, I want to spend more time with my grandkids and my babies, and how can we move things a little bit differently? I do the TMA assessments with all my employees, and we're digging so deep into what employees really want and desire, and then blending that with the operational needs of the organization and how we can do health advocacy in the community. And I have to tell you, it's so different than the pragmatic, the stereotypical aspects that we do in HR in the past. I think the golden lining or silver lining as we look at for the last, as you say, 18 months, has been the fact that companies are operating very differently, and the most intuitive and the most emotionally intelligent leaders now really need to dig in and operate very differently. And that goes for all executive levels and HR people. All right, that was a little deep, but that's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, very good, Shar. I mean, I think it's a good point. So, Annissa, what do you think is the first step in adapting to the changing talent needs? Is it of course reaching out, like Shar mentioned, to your employee group and then opening that communication?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, Shar, I think that's wonderful that you are rethinking and listening to everybody, right? It's a little bit like this, like product managers with a product or a service, and how they have to listen to the customer, think about where the customer is going, and create something flexible enough to meet all of those different needs. So I absolutely think the first thing you have to do is look at all the sentiment, and not I feel like our employees may be thinking this, but look at the data from a Glassdoor perspective. I mean, I think so many companies don't use Glassdoor effectively. It's actually a tool that can really help you understand what's being said about your company, and to deal with the things that are the themes that are being repeated over and over again, which an engagement survey may not capture, right? So I think just looking at all the data that's available to you, conducting focus groups, you know, sitting down with your team, with your teams, like Shar mentioned, and just understanding where everybody's at. And, you know, where Shar's experiencing tremendous growth, and she'll continue to do that because she's thinking about, how do I really think about what my employees need, and how do I think about what my business needs, and how do I bring those together into something that works for everyone?
Right, it's an amazing synergy. And yes, I've worked with big executive companies that did, you know, the employee engagement surveys, you know, looking at the Glassdoors. It's kind of a unique experience being a startup company and trying to grow and be as agile. I think that's probably our superpower, is that we're small and mighty, and that we can grow and move very fast. Whereas some of the big corporations that I worked with in the past, they're like the big Titanics or the big ships with the little tugboats, and HR is constantly trying to help them, but they can't get their tide moved as fast as the smaller little startup companies. We can move so fast and change our dynamic around talent management strategy.
I love that image of the tugboats trying to move the big behemoth boat around.
Oh yes, Sam, yes. I've been the little tugboat, as you can imagine, me going, trying to move the big old.
So we were talking about looking at information and opening the lines of communication with our employees and looking at different aspects. And Annissa, you brought up Glassdoor. Sumit, I'd be interested to know, in other global locations, are there other tools that companies use that are similar to Glassdoor that are more prominent in different regions?
So Glassdoor is quite popular here in India as well. However, there have been instances of employers who've petitioned the courts to take off what they consider as negative reviews or fake reviews from Glassdoor. So it's a little absurd for people to not be looking at the mirror and instead just saying, I want this blocked we want our entire company taken off Glassdoor because we don't believe the reviews.
Ah, yeah, that's a good point, because I've heard of a lot of companies talking about managing Glassdoor versus actually using it as a tool. So what are your thoughts? Do you have advice you give CEOs on that, Annissa?
Yeah, and I mean, I've met a lot of CEOs that tell me it's just the negative employees that are posting there, or that's not really what it's like, or these aren't real reviews. And look, I remind them it's no different than Yelp, right? If you're a consumer business and you have bad Yelp reviews, that's going to impact your ability to be successful with your business overall. You have to respond to those reviews. You don't have to accept everything that's out there, but you can provide the context for why certain decisions were made. And there's actually a strategy for when someone posts a really negative review, for posting an authentic response that shows the context and the perspective, and it makes that review look bad, right? And it makes it look like somebody was just angry. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to authentically respond to reviews that just it is using it as a tool. And I probably would equate using it as a tool and managing it, because it's both, right? It's learning from it, but it's also managing the responses so that future employees are reading those reviews and understanding that there's a full picture. And no company is perfect, right? It's just every company has dysfunction, right? Just like every family has dysfunction, and you just have to accept that, and you have to say, is this dysfunction going to be okay with me, or is this something that somewhere I just don't see myself? And is the company aware of the dysfunction and trying to fix it and manage it as best they can, or are they just turning a blind eye to it? So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I coach CEOs all the time, and most of them start with me. Sam, you were asking me about, why I wrote the book. I may have told hundreds of CEOs that they had to work on Glassdoor and manage it, respond to reviews, and they all were like, okay, Annissa, whatever. And then a lot of them have read the book and come back to me and said, oh, now I get why I need to manage Glassdoor, right? So it's just taking that into a story and providing the context for what happens when you do these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, right now, as companies are struggling, as we've been talking about, and either attracting or retaining their people and adapting to the new climate. So being in the business of compensation, I constantly hear, well, we need to increase our pay, we need to retain our people. But I'd also pay can be a short-term band-aid, in helping keeping people in the seats. But often there's signs of a bigger issue that's happening in the organization, in their employee value proposition. How do you recommend that companies react more quickly on fixing some of those issues in the employee value proposition while they prop up their proposition with pay in the short term?
Yeah, it's like flying the plane while you fix the wing, right? I think you have to, and I don't mean to keep going back to Glassdoor, but analyze that and figure out what's happening, and really develop a plan that is going to start to structurally address it. And don't just hold that plan with the executives and HR. Be very open with your workforces and talk to them about what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and how do you make this all, how do you make this work? How do you drive change in the organization? And again, to Shar's point, it's not change management models or anything like that, but what are the really specific actions that we're going to take as a team, both leaders and HR, to eliminate some of these problems and to really change the culture to what we need it to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I coach all my leaders is every single one of us as leaders are change agents. Every single one of us are change initiators. And even the frontline employee is part of that part. So, we talk about it every day. And, it's not a cliche term, the word change management anymore. It's like literally every single one of us on a personal level are experiencing it, as well as the leaders need to know how to champion it and support our employees through that change.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add, I think that's totally right. And I would add that, you know, this isn't just HR's job. It's not HR's job to just surface this and then to try to change the culture. Like the leaders have to buy into this, and the leaders have to help enable HR to be able to do this and commit to the change, to Shar's point, that's being asked of them.
So it's true. Yeah, all leaders need to up their game in this environment. But sometimes, I mean, there's the lack of knowledge on how to take those first steps. And in your book, it's showing about how a tactical HR leader can fail the company, and sometimes they need to look outside for inspiration on ways to come back and look at things more strategically. So can you tell us a little bit about how you help companies with that?
Yeah, and one of the more interesting things that, you know, we get stuck in just looking at our competitors, what our competitors are doing, and try to like one up them. And I think, you know, we do this from a business perspective, we do this from a talent perspective. One of the things that I often encourage clients to do is to think about organizations that they've been a part of in their life, where they've had this feeling of stickiness, right? That like, and I think about the most common example is where you went to college, right? When you meet somebody who's an alum from where you went to school, there's this immediate connection. There's this immediate, oh yeah, you went there. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, go Bears, whatever, right? So like, how do you tap into that and figure out what was it about that experience that made it so unique? How did you dig into how did the school create that? Why do you feel that way? And for a lot of people, it's like one thing that happened, like it was summer camp in when they were a teenager and they met 10 people and they've all kept in touch, and every year they have this huge reunion. Like, what was it about that experience that made it so unique? So really digging into that, figuring it out, and then asking yourself, are there things that I can apply to the work experience that would create the same type of feeling? So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of, I also think the other example I use a lot is we build these HR processes from a compliance point of view, instead of from the point of view of what do the employee manager need to make this successful, to feel like they should do this, not that they are being forced to do this, but that they want to do this. We tend to over-engineer these processes. We tend to over-engineer the training for them. And here's the reality. We all have mobile phones. When was the last time you sat through a training for how to use a mobile app? Right? Like,
we just try it and then we go, why is this taking so long to download?
You just dig in and you start using it. And so if that's the experience people are used to in their everyday life, they're going to start expecting that experience in their work life. And we have to be thinking about design and user experience the same way that technology thinks about it. That's just the bottom line.
Well, I have to say that I'm going to put in a little plug. I love the fact that the TMA has actually apps and online applications that leaders can use when we're hiring, we're training, we're developing. And I have to tell you, all my leaders absolutely love it. And we apply it every day. Now I had to get them to download the app, and they had to remove all the other apps that were taking up all their space. But I was like, what's more important, your leadership or the app that's going to help you lead better, or your games?
That's right. And I think you come from a unique perspective, Annissa, having that technical background, and in this unique time where one of the biggest drives of HR and talent is ensuring that their people understand these new systems and how to be successful remotely. And so what have people officers and so forth had to do to ensure that technology is more adapted, or ensure that their companies having that digital integration with their staff? Is there any secrets that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? You talk to a lot of companies that were much more traditional in-office type environments, and they've all tried to, kind of adapt Slack and, all of these different tools that have been around for a while, or even Zoom. So, a lot of folks didn't use Zoom a lot prior to the pandemic. There's a couple of things. So I'm going to answer the question a little more broadly. One of the things that I think companies really have the opportunity to do is, yes, you can buy all this technology, you can put it out there, but all you're doing is creating noise if you don't define a consistent way of using the information. And so one of the things that I worked with all my clients on over the last 18 months was to build a culture doc or a culture guide, which really documented how the culture works. And this is everything from the vision, the mission, the values, to the operating principles, to how do we communicate. And the concept is we're all sitting in distributed teams now. We had to start onboarding people, right, in these distributed environments. We're going to continue to do this. You can no longer go into an environment and learn by just being in an office. I think that, maybe there's going to be a time where you get some of that back, but it's never going to be what it was. So this culture guide actually helps them to really put all of this in writing. And it's a tough exercise. It's not just like I have a template on my website that you can purchase, but it's not just this template. It's getting everybody on the leadership team to align to, yeah, this is how we're going to operate as a company. And it can be HR can do it and they can work with the leaders on this, but it can be a very difficult exercise to get through and to put together. But it probably doesn't work as well for the larger companies. But let's say, if you're under 500 employees, this is a great way to get everybody aligned on the same page and to figure out, like, how do we all move in the same direction? And it's, some companies believe that meetings should start and end on time. Other companies believe that meetings start 10 minutes late and they go as long as you need. Like, you need to be really crystal clear about how you want your company to operate and what the expectations are. So someone coming in has a leg up and understands, okay, I just sent out this meeting invite. I'm 15 minutes in and no one's shown up, right? They need to understand why that's the case and what to expect.
Right.
Well, I have to say this, you just got my mind thinking a lot because, spending a lot of time in airports the last month. So everybody is sitting around on their phones and their apps and looking at technology. And I love the aspect of a cultural, analysis of your company. But I also believe that we have to make it so that it's just in time, that it's easy, that it's frontline, that leaders and employees can see it and go through it very easily, and it's immediate. And it's not some bureaucracy of a form or a format or some click-based, database that's very old-fashioned these days, right? I mean, it has to be something that if you want your employees to participate in some survey or cultural analysis, or you want leaders to participate in something like that, that they can do it just in time, right off their phones, right off their apps, and they can do it very quickly. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. And, like when we put the culture guide, so I've done this for 6 or 7 clients, everyone looks different. Every format looks different. Sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's, but it's not a handbook, right? It's not this bureaucratic document, to your point. It is a fun graphical way of thinking about the company. It's intended to, you should feel compelled to want to look at it because it's fun to read and it's helpful, and it shouldn't be long. It's not this 100-page document. It's 10 to 15 pages that just help you, if you're going to do it in a document format, that help you understand how the company works, and you can refer back to it as you need to.
Yeah, it needs to be very quick. Even leaders, I have to tell you, I've been an executive leader in the past, and waking up at 6 a.m. trying to get 5 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it was, but trying to get to my, my meetings every day, my 200 emails of the day, trying to click through everything. And then you got HR saying, well, yeah, you got to click on this survey. You got to get this done, and it has to be done by October 15th. I think HR executives need to think about how to make it easy, efficient, and where they can really do it just in time and at their fingertips, right? So I love the fact that you keep it short. It's 15 pages, you said?
Yeah, I mean, at most, right? You don't want it to be any longer than that. And it's very graphical. It's and it like we usually have the marketing department or the outsourced graphic artists put it together in a way that really reflects the company. So you're excited to read it because it's something that's interesting that helps you learn about the company.
Yeah, because as HR leaders, it was very difficult to get out there. The HR executives, I had over 3,000 employees in my quote book of business, or I had 100 leaders in my book of business, as you call it, whatever it was at the time. But, it was really difficult as an executive HR leader to try to get out there and collect all that data so quickly and efficiently. And it wasn't until we started getting the technology to be able to get that collected very quickly and fast So I love the fact that you're thinking that way. That'll help our HR leaders collect that data, because the executives, the CEOs and CFOs, they only care about the money, the dollar, sorry, the money, the numbers. They care about the numbers, right? Right, Sam?
Yeah, that's right. Of course.
One of the issues that I also see with things like such surveys is the fact that they're seen as, oh, this is something that HR pushes out to us once a year, and they keep tracking completion percentages. They keep hounding you in the middle of your workday to get this done, and finally nothing even comes out of it. So I really don't have the time or patience to do it. So I think we as HR professionals, we do a really poor job of selling what's the outcome, what are we trying to improve. So if we just talk about we're trying to improve our culture, we're trying to understand from you where we are right now, how we can build a better organization for you, where you can thrive, all of us can collectively take ourselves into the future. Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with single digit percentages or abysmally low participation rates.
Yeah, and I think we like HR, and I've done this, back in my career, like, that we get the survey results, and we try to make it look as positive as possible, versus using it as a way to say, here are the 3 things that we're going to change at the company. And we ask a ton of questions. We don't ask it in the language of the business. It's not relevant to what people are doing day to day. It's relevant to what HR
Absolutely.
thinks is important. And so that's where there's a lot of disconnect. There are a lot of tools and technologies out there right now that are starting to emerge, and I'm sure you guys have seen these, that capture real-time engagement. And I think that's the opportunity. You can do a 5-question pulse survey, every 6 months to get more perspective, but it needs to be aligned to the 3 or 5 things that you're trying to change in the organization. When you come up with an action plan of 100 things, like, nobody can do anything with that. And then the other thing is, HR can facilitate the survey, but really it's a leadership action plan, right? Or an organizational action plan of what needs to change from the culture perspective for people to be more engaged. But a lot of companies and a lot of HR leaders, and I was certainly guilty of this, we'd be like, oh, our engagement is up 2 points, and we'd start celebrating that, versus asking ourselves, does this number really make sense? Did our participation drop off? Is this something that's positive? We're trying, so we think it's a reflection on us when HR is, when engagement is low, but yes, there are things HR needs to be doing around it, but it's an organizational wide activity that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I would say also, we were always forcing the 90%, participation rate, right?
Yeah.
I was the Gallup queen, and I was able to achieve, being the leader of employee engagement for 8 years, 90% participation. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, we're only forcing engagement here. Enforcing the participation. I'm sorry, Sumit, were you going to say something?
So essentially the same thing that you just said, Shar. One, a lot of focus on participation rates, and also once people have filled up the survey, in line with what Annissa said. So I was working with an HR leader, and I was handling the engagement survey. I was supposed to present to a C-suite audience, and the first slide of my presentation was one line that said, 1/3 of our people are not engaged. And when my boss saw it, she completely flipped and said, no, we should report this as 67% of our people are engaged.
Yeah.
The leaders can do with some good news. I completely refused. We had a major showdown, and I said, if I'm presenting it, this is how I'd like to present it. If you don't like my messaging, I'm out.
So hey, Sumit, were you ever asked to lop off the tail of the highly disengaged? That's what I was told by my CEO. You got to lop off the tail. That meant fire anybody that's disengaged, right? So it's like, we don't care what they have to think about their engagement.
Absolutely. So there are organizations who say that these people are disengaged. We don't see any point in spending money to engage or retain them. They're going to leave anyway, and they're probably just unhappy about their last salary increase or being left out in their quest for a promotion. So just ignore them, and they're outliers. Just
Right.
get them out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big mistake. I mean, we have to ask why. We need to, when a person is disengaged, doesn't mean that, well, let's just bring this in a human context, right? I mean, nobody's going to be a high performer or be engaged all the time, every month of or day of the year, right? There's going to be ups and downs and so forth. And as leaders, we need to understand why a person becomes disengaged and understand if it's an issue that is going to spread across the organization because of a need that needs to be filled, right? So
right. Well, it's usually you're highly disengaged that used to be you're highly engaged. It used to be your superstars. So somewhere in the engagement process, they were burned or disengaged in somewhere, and you have to get to the heart of that. In fact, I'm dealing with that issue right now in my company. So
yeah, I mean, just think about it. If you've been a high performer and you're doing and you just got through a really tough project and in very tough situations like the pandemic, you're fully remote, you complete it and you're expecting a glowing review and crickets, right? Okay. So I mean, how does that make you feel? I mean, it can be a complete lack of communication on the manager's part, or the lack of recognition that can cause that to happen to a high performer.
Or a lack of transparency. The fact that the company is struggling during the pandemic has nothing to do with your performance. The fact that we're just struggling financially, we can't just give raises across the board, right? Right, Sam? So it's all about communication and transparency. And I think that's really vital. And I'm definitely learning my lesson on that.
And it's also about creativity in handling such situations. So I'll give you an example of a professional services firm in India. They didn't really have the budget to give people salary increases because of the pandemic. In fact, they had to cut salaries by a few percentage points. However, they announced that the moment things improve, whatever the salary cut has been, we'll convert that into variable pay. So for example, if you were say earning $100, we're only giving you 90 this year. The $10 goes into a fund. You perform well next year, and if things are better, we'll give you 20 instead of the 10. So right. You're finding a way to retain those people. You're finding a way to do justice to them as well, and saying that it's not a perpetual permanent salary decrease that you're having to deal with. Mm-hmm. And they had pretty much zero attrition when they announced this.
It's amazing. You know, and when I was first working with companies at the beginning of the pandemic, and they all had to kind of think about how do we, preserve our business, preserve our employees. I advised a lot of leaders to not do this in some conference room where they were just, sitting by themselves and not engaging the employees, but to bring in the employees and talk to them about the reality of where we were and to get their opinion on the best way to handle it. And so a lot of employees or a lot of workforces opted to take a reduction in salary to preserve jobs overall. And so like these creative solutions came from more of this crowdsourcing function versus just, hey, I'm going to go into a back room with the CFO and the head of HR, and we're going to figure out what we need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. I mean, great advice.
Right. Well, it's been a wonderful conversation. I know that we are approaching towards the top of the hour, so I just do want to acknowledge our sponsor for today's event. And TMA is definitely a great tool that we use internally, and I know that Shar is a big fan with Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. And so,
yeah, I have to interject. I'm about to in the next hour. I'm about to do another TMA review.
Yeah.
I have 4 more TMA reviews within the next week. So we're utilizing the tool, and it's really created, again, we're thriving through this epidemic. I mean, my company is thriving, and I think a lot has to do with the fact that we're utilizing positive psychology and the TMA to really help my company be supported with our talent.
Yeah,
so,
and a lot of this is around communication, right, Shar? I mean, the assessments of TMA is not about, the good or the bad. It's about opening the communication.
Yeah, we've thrown traditional performance management practices out the window. So we are completely, as you say, a progressive, future-oriented HR function in our company. And our employees find it rewarding. Even when we have to onboard and offboard people, they are more receptive to the fact that we are very much about their personal success, their career mobility, and their career success. So this has been an outstanding tool. And my director, my managers all utilize the app. I can't even tell you, it is just at their fingertips, and we utilize it all the time. So I would just say, if any leader, any HR person wants to learn how I've applied it to my company to help my company thrive, you should talk to us. You should talk to me. I will tell you.
That's great. And those apps are available on the Apple Store if you just search TMA.
Yeah, and they're free. They're free, but I think they're free, but it also is a matter of how you apply it to your company, and having a talent management expert and an HR leader understand how to apply it to the operations, as well as somebody that knows how to run a company, I think is really very valuable. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam. I was just telling you how I'm using it.
No, that's all good. Good. Thank you, Shar, for your input there. So if you're interested in learning more about the TMA method, or if you'd like to take a free assessment yourself, just feel free to reach out to me at support@compteam.net, and I'll send one of those invites for you so you can check out the assessment and see how the tool works for you. Also, I'm excited to say that I'm going to be talking next week on the People Strategy Forum. We're going to be talking about paying the remote workforce. And so right now, we know that we've gone into hybrid pay, such as people are doing, hybrid workforce. People are working in the office, they're working at home, and some people are working full-time remote. As a matter of fact, there's been a huge emergence of the global nomad, which once this was just a few people doing this for a few years, and moving around the globe and working from different locations. But as the shift towards remote work has happened, this is occurring more and more. So how do we pay these people, especially if we just have a pay structure that's based around the local office, and it doesn't cover the globe, right? So I'll be talking more about that the next Wednesday. So make sure you join us there.
I'm looking forward to that, because I'm a global nomad.
Yeah, I know, and I do the same myself. But it's a fun topic. It's a fun topic, and I think that it's going to be more of the growing part of the workplace going.
Yeah, and it is exciting. I have employees that are also going globally now too, so exciting. And so I love working with such a diversity. I love working with Jules and Sumit, and having this global perspective. It's just been phenomenal since we started this thing. It's just amazing.
Yes.
And we have people from everywhere. So it just shows like technology just connects us, and you can really perform from anywhere, the beach, with Shah, in my woman cave with my humidifier. It can go to me anywhere in the world. Like, it's possible.
Well, just keep me out of the wine cellar, okay?
Send wine.
All right.
Send money. Just send wine.
So Annissa, can you tell us more about, or can you tell our listeners more about how they can learn about a little bit more about you and your services?
Sure. So the best place is my website, theloglab.net. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter at Annissa D.
Right. And tell us about where they can find your book.
The book's on Amazon. You do need to, you can get it through the website, but you can also get it on Amazon. You just have to type in the comeback. There are a lot of comebacks, so you probably need to type in Annissa Deshpande as well.
Great.
Oh, I'm definitely going to look it up. Thank you so much. You're awesome.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It was super fun.
Yeah, such a pleasure. And thanks you for sharing your knowledge with us and our listeners. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Everybody have a
too.
great week, and
Thank
see you
you.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.